Welcome back to Rumi Gold, where quiet mastery begins. What if clarity is louder than all your effort, but you're listening for the wrong thing? What if you never needed to chase to be found? What if wealth was already in the room, waiting for you to get still enough to see it? What if you could stop holding your breath for more, and finally let yourself exhale? What if the game was never about hustling forward, but about sinking deeper? Today we explore effortless wealth, not as a plan, but as a pulse, not as a tactic, but as a truth. The kind of prosperity you invite, not the kind you force. The energy that comes to those who honor their own calm first. Where in your life are you forcing something, pushing when ease might serve? Where have you traded your peace for movement, thinking speed means progress? What's the real price of running after outcomes that would come if you just stood still? Breathe here for a second. There's a cost to always chasing. You know this, that tiredness in your chest after a long day, the way your mind races well past midnight. Sometimes it's a win that leaves you emptier than you started. It's the heaviness you can't explain, the kind that comes from missing your own presence while grabbing at things outside yourself. I remember a morning when I stopped. Silence, no more reaching, just letting the morning air move through the space. I didn't hustle, I didn't force. Offers kept coming in, emails, opportunities, deposits, rolling in before I could even respond. Not because I was on the hunt, but because I finally respected the stillness enough to receive. The more I settled, the more life sent to meet me. Wealth noticed my patience and mirrored it back. Let that breathe. You already feel it. There's something here. Stay with it. This isn't about motivation. It's about remembering the gravity that already pulls what's yours into your hands. That's the discipline. Most people don't see it. The way we chase, it slips in quietly, like a program running in the background. You wake up, and before breath, your mind is already sprinting. Did that post get enough likes? Should you try a different headline? Maybe it's time to check your bank account again. Refresh, 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 as if your worth pulses in those numbers. That's not discipline. That's the nervous system in survival mode. No one tells you when you grip the chisel too tight, you lose your feel for the stone. When your hands are clenched, you can't build. Too much force, and the art breaks. You tell yourself it's about effort, about hustle, but hustle turns to scrambling. Scrambling turns into noise. Watch how you try to squeeze more into each hour. You fill every gap in your day with striving. You send one more message, update another spreadsheet, chase clients, chase results, chase applause that never really lands. It never feels solid, does it? You already know this. People say you can't let up, that if you pause, you lose your edge. But if you never pause, the edge becomes a grindstone. It wears you down. Every notification becomes a jolt. All the micromanaging just blurs the bigger picture. Your days start to feel like one long, anxious inhale, never exhaling, never softening. Let that echo. You try to be everywhere, posting in every channel, replying to every comment, launching before you're ready, checking traffic stats, scanning inboxes for proof you matter, watching your schedule fill to its brim, convincing yourself this is growth. But inside, something tightens. Even victory starts tasting like tension. You grip the wheel and wonder, why hasn't it gotten easier yet? In martial arts, movement comes from center. Too much tension. You can't move. Trying to force a breakthrough or force another person only locks you out of balance. Presence is quiet. True power is steady, not frantic. There's nothing to prove. When you grasp too much, you don't receive. A bird doesn't land on a hand that thrashes. Money senses chaos and drifts away. The desperate chase is a closed circuit loop with no exit. But when you step back, when you loosen the grip, clarity whispers. What if your wealth starts with the space you protect in your own mind? What if everything you've worked so hard to hold could come toward you faster if you simply slowed down? What if all that frantic effort isn't a signal of purpose, but a plea for peace? And what if calm is the real flex? Not just when things feel good, but especially when the world goes sideways. Let that land. Almost everyone gets this backwards. We grow up thinking money likes the busiest man in the room. We flood our days with noise, with calls, with that tension in the chest that never seems to clock out. But calm isn't the same as stopping. Calm is becoming rooted, like a mountain that stands through every season. It's not about doing less. It's about containing more without letting it spill you over. Think of a mountain wind rain, morning, night. None of it changes its position. The mountain doesn't try harder. It remains in place, solid, and because of that, rivers form at its feet, forests thrive around it. There's no rush, there's pressure, but not panic. Calm holds everything together. That's what wealth craves, to gather around. Not desperation, not hurry, but gravity. On a practical morning, it looks small. Try 5 quiet breaths before your phone. Each inhale is like reclaiming your own space. Each exhale says, I'm not performing for the world yet. On those mornings, pay attention. The first call of the day. You feel less hijacked, less like a man on trial, more like a man in charge of his own sky. Pause for a moment. Try it now. Place a hand on your chest. Breathe in slowly. Hold it. Let it out. That's you. Not chasing, just holding. No story, just presence. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. One client thought more hustle made more money until we subtracted meetings, left wide open patches of silence in his calendar. He found that what rushed out of his days was only noise. What rushed in was clarity and money. Work was steadier. Relationships, less frayed, more real. Picture a candle, too. In a still room, the flame gathers itself, delivers every ounce of its energy upward. If you stand too close with your problems, flick open windows of distraction, winds of expectation. The flame dances wild, half extinguished, thin. You are that candle. The room is your ritual. What if the final barrier to abundance wasn't outside you at all? What if the rarest wealth was the willingness to let it in? What would happen if you stopped clenching and simply let your hand rest open? Let's pause, there breathe, notice your own hand. Maybe you're making a fist without realizing. Maybe you've been bracing all day. Slowly, gently, let your palm open. Feel that. Nothing rushed, just an invitation. Most of us are skilled at striving. The world calls that virtue, but the deeper asking is, can you let yourself receive? Look at the artist. Days, months, years, pouring spirit onto canvas. But when someone wants to buy, her voice drops, her price shrinks. That energy of downplaying, of sidestepping is the same as a closed hand. The blessing comes to the door, and the door only opens halfway. Or the man who builds an inner kingdom of discipline, rising before dawn, meditating, saying no when required. But when help is offered by his neighbors, when comfort or care comes his way, he stiffens. He says, "I'm good." That pride wears a mask that looks like humility. But inside, it's a refusal. The help never lands. The cycle is incomplete. The gardener plants, tends, waters. But when the fruit shows up, ripe and heavy, he leaves it hanging, untouched. There's no receiving. The labor remains unfulfilled. The circle never closes. Let that land. Receiving is not a bonus. It is the final act of creation. The vessel has to allow the water to fill. A hand that never opens, never holds. It's not about greed. It's not about taking to actually land. Let this be felt. Pole pin your palm again. Now. Notice the urge to close or hide. Breathe. Stay open just one breath longer. Wealth, joy, love. They're not kept out by a stingy universe. More often, they're kept out by an internal no. The gate stays shut. The hand refuses to unclench. The email with the opportunity sits unread. The thank you goes unspoken. Because suspicion whispers, "Is this safe to take in?" That's the discipline. To let it in without bargaining. To be paid what you're worth and accepted with the reverence you'd welcome a quiet blessing. To let pleasure move through the body and not apologize. To say yes to harvest, to open even when it feels risky. Nothing to prove here. You already know this. Wealth multiplies, not by clinging or striving, but by the hand that dares to open, gently, again and again. Even now, let your palm stay open. So we come back to the start. Calm, align, receive, like the cycle of your breath. Inhale, that's the calmer filling, spine straightening, nothing forced. The pause between breaths is alignment. Not rushing forward, not holding back, just a moment where your whole being knows it's okay to be still. Then the exhale, you receive what's here. Let out the old, create space for the new. You don't force it, it just happens. Let that land. You already know how to breathe. You already know how to let money, opportunity, respect flow in when you're not locked up or reaching. Every day, this is your practice, not in theory, but in the small, unremarkable moments. Sitting at your desk, folding laundry, driving home at night. Calm isn't something you fight for, it's built quietly, like the base of a mountain. Alignment, ISNT, a grand speech it, a silent yes, that lines up your actions with your core. Receiving isn't weakness. It's the open hand, the empty pocket, the strong man with nothing to prove. That's the discipline. Affirmations, slow and true. I breathe before I act. I breathe before I act. I choose clarity over chaos. I choose clarity over chaos. I open my hands to support. I open my hands to support. I move from calm, not haste.